follow-up question. I was going to ask you about that when you were talking about the editorial relationship between you and Kate, and you were talking about, and you, Kate, were talking about Jerry immersing himself in the book and not only having those kind of conceptual questions, but line editing. And while you were talking about that, I was thinking, Jerry, how do you get time to do this with all your writers? Because aren't you selling these books internally, and then there are all the marketing decisions, and then you're all your meetings and
I really work fucking hard.
You do, Jerry.
I just work like a dog.
But I'm wondering.
No, it's true. It's so much fun. I mean, it's hard, but it's so much fun to bring a good book into the world. It's such a privilege, you know. And if you have to do this on you know, weekends and nights, well, what else? You know, what are you going to watch? The Real Housewives of New Jersey? My wife does that. I'm entirely too familiar with this women. I go to an acupuncturist in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, and I'm just really scared.
Housewives. So on that note, I mean, do you feel there's so much doom and gloom going around about publishing nowadays and the event of the e-book and no one's reading? Do you just ignore that? Do you feel optimistic? Do you feel pessimistic? What do you...
I don't know, I grew up under the shadow of the atom bomb and that's gone, so I'm feeling pretty good.
And Kate, you just don't... Do you think about those things? Or
I really try not to. I feel like I'm one of the luckiest writers on earth, having Jerry as an editor and these people behind me at Doubleday, and so far so good. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but they've treated me so well, really.
You know, I seriously, I get down from time to time, and who doesn't? But there's this really glam British publisher by the name of Jamie Bing, you know, who runs. He's an aristo who I think took his family money and bought Canongate, you know, and he's a great guy. You know, he's just up, and I remember he came into town and like he threw a dinner down in the village for some people he likes in American publishing, and he's tossing his lops back and he's smiling and everything, and I thought, that's the way to be. You know, if you approach the whole enterprise like you know, in a down in the mouth manner, you're just going to get the results you know, the result is foreordained. But if you really care and you really think that what you're doing, the things you're bringing to the world are valuable, and there's great joy to be found in reading them, well, just, you know, put on your, you know, your glad-handing, you know, it's showbiz, you know, sell it. And I, you know, I don't have a title, so or a family fortune, so that's one thing that Jamie has that I don't. But his attitude is something that I actually remember when I oh, good, you know.
Yeah. So do we have some questions from, yes, sir?
I have a question for Vice President part of the editor. Business side of the industry that you're in.
Yeah.
How many books can you actually publish in the course of a year? Do you have a budget for that?
Me personally?
The company.
I mean, you know, I never even. No, I mean, yes, there is somebody in the Knopf Doubleday group has a set of numbers governing how many books we publish in a year and how many of those books should sell X numbers of copies in order for us to make the numbers that that the people who run the company do. So yes, we have budgets, we have we have target budgets, and we're supposed to make or exceed them. And if we don't, stern looks are thrown in our direction, and even worse shit has been known to happen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to know, it's very interesting to hear you talking about working together, and of course I didn't know that happened with editors and writers. So let's not talk about Kate, let's talk about other writers. You get the manuscript in, and how do you decide, well, this book is lacking something, this book is lacking something, can I influence it and make it go, or should I just leave it? I mean, how do you make those decisions? Do you make that decision?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really have to say that the sort of scut work involved in bringing any book into the world is just immense. I mean, has anybody here ever done permissions? Raise your hand. Yes. Hell, yes. I mean, just the permissions alone is enough to reduce you into a quivering mass. But the point is that there's a lot of work involved, and then so the first thing you have to say is, how much do I care about this book? You know, in order to go through this, and if I really care, well, if it really just speaks to me, then all sorts of other questions come into play, which is, you know, how many copies can you sell reasonably? What is this place? What? You know, I do a lot of nonfiction too, by the way. How is this positioned, and other things? Is this a good book for this company? You know, is this a good book for? You know, some books, in a way, might be more Tony than perhaps Doubleday would take on, and it would be better published by Farrar Straus. And Giroux, they just send on a different frequency. So all of these decisions come into play, and the editorial part is part of it. I say, well, this is really, you know, this book is working up to this point, but there's something about it that I wish was here, and maybe I'll have a talk with the author before acquiring, saying, if you were to try this rather than that, and I don't mean put a vampire in. But I'm working, you know, it's Colson Whitehead is doing a zombie novel, so.
That's so smart of him.
Yeah, but he's the guy that can do it. He's the, yeah. But anyway, my list is zombie-free so far. I don't get it. But other things, I might have a conversation with the author, see if my ideas about what this book could do might be changed or are congruent with his or her. So a whole congeries of considerations and questions that I have to ask myself, not to mention things that are said to me by my colleagues and superiors, which I really like that. Yeah, I do. You know, that's happened maybe 500, 600 times.
I know. Other questions? Yes.
Aside from zombies, what do you think are the next big trends in the fiction market for the next 5 or 10 years?
Greenpoint novels. You know, Kate's a very good critic, and I would like to hear what you think about what Norman Mailer once called the talent in the room. I mean, what do you think is going on?
I think there's a real split between writers that I don't see talked about much, but I feel it acutely being on one side of it very strongly. I think there's a sort of, it's been a very cerebral time for fiction for the past 15 or 20 years, and I think there have been a lot of books that have been very heady, that have done very well because they're structured, they're thought, they're intellectual, they're like full of things, gimmicks like footnotes and whatnot. And
I was present at the creation.
Yeah, I know, and it's not the kind of fiction I write at all, and I felt very much outside the mainstream of what's considered literature and what's been, and it's there's See, this is why the chick lit thing might have had some merit, because I feel like there's, on the other side, the people who just write about characters, people doing things, character-driven fiction that's really psychological and sort of rooted in people and more intuitive and instinctive and visceral. And I'm probably generalizing wildly, but so what I'm feeling a turn. I hope I'm feeling a turn towards storytelling again, but we'll see.
You know, there's one of your biggest fans in the critical world is Lev Grossman, who's just, you know, written a couple of reviews of your books that really you want to bronze or, you know, set to music. But he said something interesting and mildly disturbing, actually, on this question. You know, because he writes, he himself is a novelist, writes novels that are fabulistic and you know, influenced by Narnia and
The Magicians.
And, you know, there's a lot of pixie dust and you know, magic in it, and in discussing kind of this trend to that sort of fiction, which in a way includes the vampire zombie sort of thing, the uncanny, you know. He stated pretty definitive that we are the mainstream now. It's like, what?
Says Lev.
But he's right in a way, if you look at it in terms of raw numbers, but it's not a kind of fiction that really speaks to me. I mean, I come out of, you know, the great, I mean, my big heroes were the great white male narcissists, you know, the Pynchons and the Gasses, and I'm not a Belovian.
Oh, that's right, you're not.
But although sees another book that I was strongly reminded of in Harry Corkut's Seize the Day, you know, another masterwork of wounded maledom. You know. But anyway, so that's what's so brilliant about Colson Whitehead doing a zombie novel, because you know the concept of culture jammer. You know, he's so sly. He's gonna make that formula do things that it was never intended to do. And you know, one of the things I heard was that, you know, when he was a kid, growing up black and middle class in Manhattan, he saw George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, or Dawn of the Dead, and you know, some of the zombies are black, you know, but nothing is made of it. He said, what's going on here? So the idea lodged in his head. So I do think trend spotting, how Lev Grossman's contention really plays out, we'll all have to watch.
Yeah, when I was at Book Expo BEA, I saw Margaret Atwood speak, and she used this term which I hadn't heard before, slipstream, and she was saying slipstream fiction it's writers who haven't written science fiction or post-apocalyptic fiction or any of that, or zombie fiction, are now slipping genres and writing anything they feel like writing. And she thought it was a big trend. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the other ugly secrets about publishing is that writers need to eat. And I can guarantee you that a lot of the slipstreaming of fiction has to do with the search for an audience, you know.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more question, and I'll do the back. I'm sorry.
I have a question. What is the role of the acquisition editor and in the relationship, and also the literary agent, past or present?
Well, I mean, I acquired books based on, and you know, my own taste and hubris. The question of the agent is a real interesting one. Do you want to tell the Epicurus Lament story or not?
What happened with the Epicurus?
Do I have to remind you?
Remind me.
Okay. So, the voice of Hugo Whittier had started, it was like The Exorcist, you know. Your mother, well, anyway.
My head's spinning around.
Your head spinning around, out came the pea soup, you know.
I remember that part.
Yeah, anyway, that this voice of this compelling and disturbing voice of Hugo Whittier had come out of you, and you had written about half the book, and you showed it to me. And you had said that your agent at the time really thought you should put this one away. Is this from?
Yeah, she didn't care for it
Right.
so much.
And I said, well, I mean, Hugo Whittier, there's a very good plot in this book. And I said, well, we have to find out how this turns out, don't we? And we did, and you changed agents to an agent who was more Sampa, as they say.
And is that person still your agent?
Oh, yeah, that person is Sampa with what I'm doing, as they say.
So, but an agent needs to be on the same page that the editor, and not to mention the writer, is. You need a team of people who can help shape a career and move it in the right direction.